Okay, we'll have that done in a moment, hopefully. In a moment, anytime would be fine. Okay. The internet is tired. Well, who knows what's happening? It's kind of slow this morning. There we go. So let's go back and talk about the exchange of CO2 and uh, the transport of oxygen and CO2 in the blood. So if you're in the tissues and CO2 is being produced, some of it, 7% is carried dissolved in the plasma. 93% is bound to hemoglobin as carboaminohemoglobin. 70% ends up being converted into CO2 plus H2O gives you carbonic acid. That carbonic acid dissociates into H plus and bicarbonate. And so most of the CO2 is end up carried, dissolved in the plasma. And you have to have this chloride shift to balance the uh, positive charges of the acid. So the HCO3 is coming out and the chloride is going in to electrically balance the chemical equilibrium. So most of the CO2 is converted into carbonic acid by an enzyme. And in the tissues, this bicarbonate leaves the red blood cells after the conversion of CO2 plus water gives uh, carbonic acid, which dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. And the bicarbonate moves out. When that negative charge leaves, we have the shift where chloride moves in from the plasma. So uh, I'm sure you can hear my dog breathing. She has a problem with her pharyngeal nerve to control respiration. She's, let's see, 14 years old. She's pretty old. So in quiet breathing, you have uh, the dorsal respiratory group, the part of the stimulation of your muscles. The diaphragm contracts. Uh, you have inhibition of the dorsal respiratory group, and then you have uh, contraction of the diaphragm. The volume of the pleural cavity increases, and uh, the the inspiratory muscles relax, so the volume in the lungs decreases, and so you have inspiration and then expiration. So you have this dorsal respiratory group in the inspiratory center, and you have these two dorsal and ventral respiratory groups. So if you're going to have forced breathing, you have to have diaphragm as well as the rest of the inspiratory muscles contracting. And so you can have inspiration, and then the dorsal respiratory group in the medulla oblongata is inhibited, and then inspiratory muscles relax, and expiratory muscles contract, and you have active expiration. So the point of this is that there are centers in the medulla oblongata where you have these different groups that stimulate inspiration and then have relaxation of the inspiratory muscles, and then the expiratory muscles contract to allow for exhalation. Where are these centers located? So I said here we have the various uh, higher centers will be in the cerebral cortex, but we have uh, these respiratory centers in the pons and in the medulla oblongata, and the nervous output is allowing monitoring of the amount of CO2 and oxygen in the blood, the pressure of the various gases. And you have chemoreceptors in the cerebellum, respiratory centers in the pons, and below that is the medulla oblongata. And these are the rhythmic centers, dorsal respiratory group and ventral respiratory group. So these nerves are constantly stimulating inspiration and then expiration, and these centers work together to allow control of air coming in and control of air going out, which leads to the uh, exchange of CO2 and oxygen. So next, okay. Okay, we're already at the end. Okay, amazing. Okay, so let's shut that off and stop recording. Stop recording.